Hey guys, I'm Tatiana Zubova. In today's video, you will learn how to use a palette knife. I'm going to share with you the main palette knife techniques which you may use in your projects. First, a palette knife may be used for background color application. We take a palette knife. Do not grip it too hard. Do not exercise any pressure. Apply the paint onto the back side on the blade. As you may see, there is no paint on the top side. It is only at the reverse side of the blade. As a rule, we need a pretty thick slab of paint to create the background. We put the entire amount of the paint on the canvas like this. We are slashing the paint in on the canvas as if applying butter to a toast. We start dragging the paint around. 1. We still have some paint left on the blade. 2 and 3. Move back and forth. The strokes are very light, like this. Then we scoop out another big piece of paint and push it around like this. We are not trying to scrape the paint away with the palette knife. Listen to that sound. We are just trying to pull the color off in soft strokes. The resulting background surface may be homogeneous or not. It does not really matter. You may work back and forth, upwards and downwards, as you choose. And with such strokes we complete the background color application. You should clean off your knife with a tissue after each stage and each stroke. Clean both the flat sides and the edges, since the edges may continue to hold some paint leftovers. The second technique is color blending. We would work with several colors. There are several blending methods. The first one is to take one color and put it right on a canvas like this. Then we take the second color and put it next to the first one on the canvas. Then we mix the two colors. How do we go about blending? We take a palette knife. By the way, I would take a bigger knife to allow me to work on large areas. The bigger the palette knife, the larger the area we may cover. I put the knife on the edges and start blending colors, moving back and forth. You may see how the colors start blending into each other, giving us a smooth color transition. Smooth color gradation may be achieved in the following way. We press the back flat side on the blade to join the canvas and literally squish the paint on. If you want to leave the third color, move back and forth like this. Part of our lovely gradient mix remains on the palette knife as well. This is one of the methods of blending colors. The second way to mix colors is as follows. I take one color and then the second color. I start mixing them with randomly applied strokes, which give me a non-homogeneous blend. I take another colors and blend it in. Such non-homogeneous blend may create interesting effects in your painting projects. You may add any number of colors to such a non-homogeneous blend. The third technique is squishing the paint into another color. Initially, we create the background like in our first exercise. We may imagine that it is a sunset scene. We already have a layer of paint on the canvas and we start squishing another color into that paint. We do this in the following way. We take this color and press it into the paint on the canvas. We put the palette knife flat on the canvas and start dragging the paint out in different directions with movement like this. And one color will blend into the other color. You spread the color around the edges and one color blends into the other color. This is a soft blending. One color is squished into the other one. You may further remove excess paint, leaving a smooth, even blended surface. Then you take out your next color and with even more soft strokes create a new blend. Remember to clean off your knife constantly. This method may be used to paint clouds and some shiny spots, fire, for example. In fact, you may paint anything. This method helps to lighten or darken the underlying color to achieve the value you need. I regularly clean off the palette knife and then put it flat on the canvas and drag the paint out. Such exercises should teach you how to hold the palette knife and how to use it. The next technique is creating textures. This is the most common type of palette knife application. You load your palette knife up with the paint and apply a background layer on one part of the canvas. There will be no background paint on the other part of the canvas. We should remember to apply very quick sweeping strokes, pressing your knife very lightly. With this large amount of paint, we may cover rather big areas. As you may see, I apply really light touches, putting the palette knife almost flat on the canvas. But I avoid full application on the blade, like in this previous method. I rather make such scraping strokes. Try this stroke, you will like it. Put the strokes in any direction as you choose to. The main thing is to get uneven textures, since the paint will come off unevenly, creating various shapes on the canvas. When we already have the background layer, we may still create various textures on it. We scoop out some paint. One must remember that if we already have some background paint on the canvas, our next layer should be applied in very light strokes. The more layers we have, the lighter the knife touches become. With strokes like this, we may create various interesting textures. We may apply overlapping layers, like here, with two colors. We may add a third color to create another layer. This technique is very good to creating various lovely backgrounds in our projects. The next palette knife technique is line drawing. A line can be created with any type of palette knife. Let's take this one. With our previous technique, we used a lot of paint. This time I take a very small amount of paint on the edge of the knife. Then I point the knife like this, putting it at the right angle to the canvas. However, if I apply it to the canvas like this, I'll not get a line. Why? That is because the paint is not at the edge of the blade, but on its back flat side. So, what we do is we point the knife at the right angle to the canvas, turn it slightly, and then drag it to create lines. Then we clean off our knife. We spread our next paint thinly on the palette. This will allow us to pick up a small amount of paint. Look, we apply a light touch, drag the paint out a bit, and end up having a thin line of paint on the knife. Then we apply strokes like this, drawing very thin lines. Of course, if you have some background already applied like this, it will facilitate our strokes. I clean off the knife after each color application. I touch the color on the palette, pick up some paint, put the knife at the right angle to the canvas, turn it slightly and drag it against the background. The paint in the underlayer helps us to draw straight lines. And now I will show you how to make straight lines with palette knives without straight edges. If in our previous example we used a diamond-shaped knife, now I'll use a thin knife-shaped one. How should we do this? We cannot just drag the knife through the paint to pick it up. So we just have to scoop it out like this, so that the entire knife edge would be covered with the paint. Then again, I point the knife at the right angle to the canvas, turn it slightly and draw the line. As you may see, we also get lovely straight lines. If our background layer is still wet, we may get very clear-cut lines. If you work on a dry surface, then the lines will be broken. And one more way to create lines with a palette knife is scraping. If in the first line method we apply the paint onto the canvas, in this second method, we scrub the paint off the canvas. I take a lot of paint and apply the background layer very much, like we did in the first exercise. Thus, we have a color layer to work with. We may now scrape some paint off with a knife to get the lines we need. Please note, the palette knives may have sharp or blunt tips. Some palette knives may even have a square nose like this one, but this is not the point of our discussion. Palette knives with such sharp tips are not very suitable for scraping the lines. Blunt tips are much better for this purpose. So, what do we do in this case? There are several ways to approach the task. If we use the edge of the knife and apply cutting strokes, we may as well damage our canvas by cutting it through, especially if we work on a stretched canvas. We will not get the lines we want, we will just cut the canvas. So do not work with the side edge. How can we draw the lines then? We may use the blunt tip here, just scrubbing back the paint. Do it like this to create various lines. And one more palette knife technique, creating non-homogeneous strokes effect. We may pick up several colors at a time with our palette knife. If we do not blend them together, we may get various interesting stroke effects. Look, I pick up one color and then the second one. I may add the third color. I'll not blend these colors on the palette, but put them right onto the canvas. Look what we get. Very interesting, non-homogeneous and ill-blended paint strokes to give us various textures. What we did, we picked up several colors from our palette and mixed them on the canvas with light strokes. In fact, you may start blending colors right on your palette. As you may see, I take one color, add the second one and start blending. However, I do not complete my blending. My resulting mix still has base color strips. I take the mix onto my palette knife and pull the color off onto the canvas like this. This would create various texture effects with uneven color distribution. It may be good for painting stones and various other nature textures. Support me with your likes if you like this video. Subscribe to my channel and share this video in social media. All the best, see you in my next video. Bye bye!